If you've recorded a video and want to edit it in Descript, the first thing to do is get it into Descript. In my browser, I've gone to Descript.com, and the page it drops me onto is this one that shows all of my projects, and I have the menu down the left-hand side. We want to create a new project so that we can bring our video in, so I'll go over here on the right and click the button that says New Project. It wants to know whether I want a video project, an audio project, or if I want to do some recording to create my project. I'm going to select Video Project. Now we can name our project, but we don't necessarily have to do that. Since we're importing a video to be used in this project, it'll just inherit the name in that video, which we can always change later. Then you can either click here to go to your File Explorer and find the file that you want to bring in, or you can paste a link from YouTube or Giphy if it's a video that's already published that you want to bring in here and edit. You could import a Zoom recording to edit in Descript. If you're building your video by writing a script and then using AI voices to speak it and adding in the visual elements, you could start with Write AI Speech, where you just start writing the script and assign the AI speaker. I already have my video recorded that I want to edit, so I'm just going to drag it in, and now it gets to work processing the video. You'll see down at the bottom on the right the activity, what it's working on. I have it set to always ask me before it detects the speakers. This way, before it starts transcribing the file and deciding who's saying what, I can tell it how many speakers are present in the file. In this case, it's just one, that's me. And since there is only one speaker, and that speaker is me, I can go ahead and drop down the speaker name and click Bob. Now I'll click Done. You can see that it's busy uploading right now, and so it says it's uploading, preparing for transcription. You'll see sort of a visual representation here of all these little dots, and then there's some heavier dots, and this will start to fill in more once it starts transcribing. It doesn't take too awful long. Up at the top, it's changed the name of the file from untitled to the name of the file that I brought in. And let me tell you why converted is at the end of this file name. It's because the video that I was bringing in had more than one audio track. The way I recorded it, audio was on two separate tracks. So if you try and import a video that has multiple audio tracks, it'll pop up and tell you, hey, can't do this, you gotta fix this. Fortunately, it does tell you why. It says the problem is you've got more than one audio track here and we're not doing that. So I just run the video through VLC Media Player and set it to convert the MP4 to an MP4, but I specify then in the audio to make it a single track. It's finished transcribing our video, and you can see the script, the transcription, right down the center of the screen here. And all these dots, this is where Descript has identified that there's not words. There's either silence or you'll see these little heavy dots. That means there's some kind of noise, but it doesn't think it's a word. Maybe that's a cough or some other aberrant sound that Descript doesn't think is speech. So we've got our script panel front and center here. Over on the left is the scene rail. If we decide to split this up into different scenes, each of those scenes would show down this left side. Then you have your preview window. I'm not sure the technical name of this section here that's almost on the right. I would probably call it a properties panel because except in the case of the Underlord, this is generally the properties that are going to apply to whatever section you're working on at that moment. And then you have menu items down the right that you can use to navigate and expose different property panels here. So if we switch from this Underlord to project, it'll show us the properties of the project that we can edit. If we went to scene, it would show us things that we can edit about the scene. Layers will show us the layers. Record is where we would go if we want to record something into the script. Elements is where we go if we want to add something like text or shapes, waveforms, progress bars, any kind of annotations, little graphics to help emphasize where you are, overlays, and frames. Captions is where you go to add captions to your video. They have a bunch of preset styles to pick from, and you can also edit the details on the captions to get it dialed in exactly the way you want it. Last but not least is stock. In the stock library, you have videos, GIFs, images, stickers, and backgrounds. In audio, you have music and sound effects. Now, the number of these things that you'll have available in each category will depend on what tier of subscription you have. So in one of the lower tiers, you might only get the first 5 results when you search for something, and in the higher tiers, it's unlimited results when you search for something. We'll leave the Underlord panel up because it's got some of the most common things that you're going to want to do while you're editing, like sound good, look good, repurpose, publish, or write. But rather than get carried away in all these fun features, let's just look at our basic editing. We need to clean this up, obviously, because we don't want all these big long spaces in here. Now, I want to know if this silence really really is a silence, and the only way I can do that is either to play through it, or I can come down to the bottom left where it says show timeline, pop that open so that I can now see my timeline. And to verify what the robots did, I can just double click on this whole row of dots here, and then it will select that within the timeline so that I can see right there, yep, sure enough, there's no words going on in there. These little bumps of sound are just that. They are not me speaking or the dialogue. And it's real easy to tell when you look at the difference between where we actually have words, which start over here. You can see that waveform. So I can say, okay, I'm very comfortable just getting rid of that. So while I have it selected, I can just press delete and it's gone. It's gone from my transcript. It's gone from the waveform. If I want to do that automatically, instead of going one by one on each of these dotted areas, I can just come over here to Shorten Word Gaps under the Underlord, click on Shorten Word Gaps, then up top I can say gaps more than 0.4 seconds, shorten them to 0.2 seconds. That's probably what I used the last time for whatever reason. You can change both of these. You can say if there's a gap that's longer than 1 second, reduce that gap to 1 second. And that's basically telling it anywhere you find a gap that's over a second, make it 1 second. Don't let any of my gaps be longer than 1 second. If I click the shorten all button, it'll go through here and find all 76 of those instances and reduce them. If I'd rather look at it one by one, I can come over here to the right and see the search results. If I click on it, that allows me to audition. It gives me a little clip before the perceived silence, a little clip after the perceived silence so that I can verify that it is a silence. And if I played it and found out the AI got it wrong and I don't want to cut out that particular silence, I can click skip. If I play through the next one and find out, yeah, that is a silence that I want to shrink down to a second, I'd leave it in place and move down through. And then when I was finished checking them all out, the ones that I've skipped will be tossed out of here. So I come back over and my number up top for this replacement will change. Since we skipped that one, it already went from 76 to 75. And I can say shorten all and it'll shorten all the ones that remained. I could also, as I go through, as I play one of these, if I don't want to skip it, I can just click the shorten button and it will shorten that particular gap for me. You can just click shorten all and it will wipe out everything that it perceived was a silence. The trouble that can come from that is that it is using the transcript to determine where a silence is, and the AI transcript is not 100% accurate. I've scrolled through my timeline and found an example where the AI missed by a little bit. I'll zoom in on this so you can see it better by holding Control on my keyboard and using the vertical scroll wheel. And here I said I'm gonna add in clones, and the AI thinks my word clones stopped right there. You can tell because there's no word above it, and it's this gray color rather than this brighter white color where there's speaking going on. So I'll play that. I'm gonna add in clones. I'm going to go ahead and close this dialogue since we're not going to work through that anymore, but this is one of the silences it detected. If I went ahead and just deleted that without looking at it, if I had hit shorten all and let it delete everything it thought was over a second, this is where it would have cut that speech. So it would have chopped off me talking right at the beginning of that word. Now you could always do the shorten all gaps, let it go ahead and reduce all the gaps that it identified to whatever amount of time that you want, and then come back in and play through the whole thing, make sure it sounds right, and when you find a problem, fix it. For instance, I'm playing through and I want to see if it got things right. Hopefully I would identify that that is an issue. So then here on my timeline, I would just come down and find where it's chopped off, where clones, I can see that that word is chopped off. I would hover over this little vertical bar here until I get sort of the right bracket with the little arrows, and then I just click and drag that out. That's probably where that word should have ended. Play that back. I'm going to add in clones, and my whole entire word got to stay that time. Whatever you're doing on the timeline, whatever you're editing, wherever you are, it's keeping pace with you up here in the script. I'm working through editing my script and I find something like here. I had started off this intro by saying if you're into music, fair warning, this thing can suck you in. And I didn't think I really wanted to include that in my introduction. I thought I better find a better way to say that. So if I just want to get rid of this, drag my mouse across, I've highlighted this, I can either press delete on my keyboard, or if I think I might need to reference it or use it, or I want to show someone else what I've deleted, I can click this little strike through button, and that will make it so that it's visible in the script with a strike through, but down here in the timeline, it went away. Not part of the video that we'll export or the audio that we would export. The keyboard shortcut on PC, Control Z, works for undo. Those are the two keys on my keyboard that will wear out before any others. I guarantee it's my favorite shortcut that ever existed. Control Z to undo. So I just did an undo on the strike through. Now I'm going to select it again, and I'm going to go ahead and delete it. Actually, I'm going to drag this all the way out to try and get rid of this space. And this is another reason I like to have the timeline on, because I can glance down here and see that that space ended in the right place and I'm really deleting the right thing. I'm not catching the beginning of another word or even entire words. So I'll press delete and that goes away. There are multiple times here that I started off saying something along that lines and it didn't go so well. So I can work through this, and when I find the last line that I want to keep, I can just delete all the takes that happened before that. Again, I'm always going to glance at my timeline down here just to make sure that based on the waveform, I'm not chopping something off in the middle of a word. And these two things, shortening the word gaps or getting rid of silences, and taking out your retakes or your pre-takes because you're going to keep the last take, those are sort of the fundamental steps of the editing. Because once you've done that, well, then you can go in and add all the magic and do other things. That's when editing starts to be really fun. But you got to get through those steps of getting rid of the obvious bad takes that you don't want and the silences before you can get to that fun stuff. I hope you found this useful, and I hope you'll come back and see me in another video.